Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkie with StartupTrading.com. It is 10 minutes till 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, October 22nd. Can you believe it? Uh, so, as we look back at yesterday's session, right, it was an inside day, and I'm going to give a little trade school here, and this is just my opinion. Uh, I don't really give two rats anythings, right? If you incrementally take out the previous day's higher high when the majority of the value of the action is spent within the previous day's value area on two of the major indexes, right? The Nasdaq and the ES. This is an inside day, right? So maybe you could say it was a look above and a fail or whatever, but you know uh, it's just not worth all of that. Looking at what we had, right, the cash market come up to 57.50. That was a lid, right? It went up to 57. Let me speak again. 67.52.16, and then just kind of petered out. It was just basically we got a 2 day balance going on up here, right? You can look back at the SPY, right? It paints a little clearer picture. And right, we had positioning up to 673, right? It was pretty thick. And then so basically we just traded between 670 and 673, right? That's a 30-point ES range, right? Each one of these dollars is 10 points on the ES. And then looking at the Qs, right? Just sitting there a few tests below the 610 strike on the Qs, and then just up right to the middle between 610 615, right? That 612 half, that's why we marked those off. And you can see it was pretty thick up to 613 as well. We traded 613.22 overnight. So with all this being said, what I'm saying is, yesterday was a lot about nothing. Uh, and my day was just to scalp here and there, and indeed, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So that was a good plan for yesterday. So let's look at today and see what we think is going on. We've got 67.80 is yesterday's point of control, and 67.07 is the point of control from last Friday, I believe. So as we kind of look at where we're at, we're still in this candle from October 10th. Um, we got up to the high end of it, right? But not a lot going on up here as you would expect. And then if we look at the overnight session, right, the Russell after closing right at pin 2500 on the futures yesterday at the close, it's just been traipsing around. It's a little bit below value right now, but it could not take out the previous low of yesterday in the overnight session. Neither could the Nasdaq. Uh, no one's taken out the overnight high. You see a little bit of a theme here, and then we're kind of right in the middle of value for everyone except for the Russell. So let's look at positioning, right? So for the cash market, we closed yesterday at 67.35. Some institutions said, hey, let's sell 6,900 for tomorrow's expiration. Fat chance in hell we get up there and really have to eat that. If we do, we sold it for a little bit of money, we'll get a little bit, right? So, uh, you know, it's a safe bet. So that's where the pain would be for the institutions. I don't think we have to worry about that. You're looking at 165 points higher than where we closed yesterday, and we're currently up 6 or 7 points. So you've got 68.25, right? That would still be up 90 points from yesterday's close. And again, we're up 6 to 7 points. And then to the downside, right? 6,700 is got some gamma on it, and that should be a pretty good support resistance zone, and that would be about 35 points lower than we closed yesterday, so or about 41, 42 points lower than we're currently trading. So that one is what it is. Let's look at the SPY, right? So the biggest area for puts today that the dealers have to work out is 670. The biggest area for the calls is 671. Right, this doesn't look too good for us day traders so far. And then you can see there's a pretty good block between 670 to 672 on the puts, a little bit on 673, and not much after that. And then below 670, right? This is going to be your flip point potentially. This is where you get into put heavy gamma, right? This is where you get into for today. This would be a little bit of a volatility trigger going down, and then above, right, you can see you got room basically from 670 up to 677. And I did not mention we closed at 671.29. We're currently trading 672. So we're right at the top end of where the bulls and the bears agree, right? They agree in this 30-point range, 670 to 672. And then we'll have to see. So, easily could, fill in fair value, to be honest with you today. Most of it would be between 670 and 672, 673, and then, basically anything from 670 up to 677 would be it. And you can see for the week, right, as we're setting up, 675 is your large strike uh, for the calls, right? So above 675, uh, you might need a little bit of help with the VIX. And then going back down, if we do start getting in a little bit of a negative feedback loop or a little bit of a, so I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you get below 670 today, when the futures drop, the dealers will have to sell, right? Normally, the dealers are doing opposite whatever is going on, right? If we're dropping, they're buying. If and that's when we're in positive gamma, right? So you're going to be in a slight negative gamma for today's expiration below 670. So volatility could increase. So when traders sell, when the market drops, the dealers are going to have to sell when the if you're below here and someone puts a big order to buy in, the dealers are going to have to buy with it, right? So you're going to get extended volatility below 670. Above 670, it's going to be a little bit more muted, in my opinion. Not to say that you can't get some good runs in this little area, but it's going to be confined. Uh, so let's look at the cues. They have the most interesting positioning for the day. If you look at this for today's expiration, and remember the VIX rolls this morning, we got Tesla after the bell tonight. Uh, you've got 615, right? You've got 18,200 puts on 615. We're currently trading uh, 610.75. So this is your put wall, meaning that's supposed to be support, your biggest level. Well, we're under that area, right? Because someone they did whatever they did. I don't know. I can't tell you if they're long or short this position, to be honest with you. But they're but as we come into this, uh, this would be your gamma check, and I think there's a high probability you at least touch 615 once today. Uh, am I gonna bet, all of my capital on that? No. But if we start having any upside pressure, right? And you're talking about just 160 NQ points, basically from where we are, maybe 170 from where we are right now. So you're looking at basically 430 would where this would be. So you're looking at 25,430 and around is where this 615 would be. Uh, and I think Jack had, I don't know if it's still in play, but I think he had a target for like 419 up there as a fib target. So that's right around this area of where that was, if that's still in play. And we'll see when he gets on the mic if that is still in play. And I was, thinking in my head, it's easy to remember 420. So we'll see if that's around where we go. But this is where that 615 would come into play. And then, uh, you know, between 610 and 615, I think it's kind of status quo, right? You can even see for the week. That's kind of where you got some big markers. And then again, you're going to get that negative gamma is going to kick in below 610 modestly, right? The farther you get from 610 to the downside, the more the dealers have to do what the market's doing, right? They have to sell when the market's selling, they have to buy when the market's buying, right? You're going to get extended volatility, a little bit more of a higher probability of that below 610. Above 615, right, today, there's potential you could get into a positive feedback loop if the VIX is uh, dropping, right? If the VIX is dropping, if we do get above 615, you want to see some one time framing. But if you just get in a little bit of, 615 to 618, I'd say if you stall in there, that's a 120 point range, by the way. It would be nothing to stall above there if we get there after coming from 610 or 611, right? That would be a pretty good move for the day. That would be over a 400 point move. Uh, and then we'll see if 615 holds or not. But that's going to be your trigger uh, and your magnet spot for the day. So between 610 and 615, nothing really going on too much. So looking at where we're at, right? Again, I think it's a pretty simple game plan. You have to remember that when I looked at the calendar last week, I didn't think we'd get some opening of volatility until today and after because of the VIX expiration. We had increased volatility all last week. What I'm telling you is from now until for the next week and a half, this is when volatility is supposed to expand. Remember, we have I think it's the FOMC next Wednesday. I'd have to go back and double check, but I think they're on the tape for next Wednesday. We have CPI on Friday. I think that's our last big news after Tesla tonight. So we'll see what Jack's looking at, but potentially, uh, we could kind of just meander. But remember, with the VIX roll, it's when someone yells fire in a crowded room, or when it's sheeple, right? When institutions or players start seeing people either buying or selling the VIX, they're gonna jump on that bandwagon because it's the VIX is thin, right? Because it's rolling today. There's lots of new positions have to go on. So, as you know, that dynamic is going to be in play probably from now through FOMC next week, uh, and maybe into next Friday as well. So keep in mind, what I plan on doing is cutting my size by 1/3 from now until next Friday. I'm going to trade 1/3 less than I usually do. I'm going to have my stops just a smidgen wider than I usually do. And then, Jack has a 25-minute timer. That's, you might want to even, if cut your size, expand your stops on entry, you might want to, uh, try to get them back into normal range within 15 minutes with the expanded volatility. I hope this helps. You guys have